Kelkkalehti podcast. Tervetuloa jälleen kuuntelemaan Kelkkalehden podcasteja. Nyt on luvassa kova jakso. Jos maailman kelkkailussa on kovia ja kovempia hahmoja, niin nyt on haastattelussa tai podcastin vieraana se kaikista kovin, eli Levi LaVallee. Jos moottorikelkalla on tehty jotain, niin on erittäin todennäköistä, että Levi on tehnyt sen ja todennäköisesti tehnyt sen ensimmäisenä. Mies on ollut mukana käytännössä kaikessa kelkkailun aspektissa, mitä nyt oikeastaan voi keksiä. Hän on tehnyt ennätyksiä, voittanut kultamitalleja, ajanut snowcrossia, ajanut backcountrya ja nyt nautiskelee kelkkailusta semmoinen hieman rauhallisemman tatsin myötä, kun tämmöinen racing-ura on ohi ja pahimmat hullutukset on nähtävästi ajettu jo rapasta pihalla. Levi oli erittäin mukava kaveri, oli paljon raatia, olisi varmaan mennyt useampikin tunti, mutta rajoitettiin tähän tuntiin tämä keskustelu. Ihan muistutuksena sanotaan ennen kuin mennään tuohon podcastiin. Tällä viikolla on nimittäin 3 podcastin viikko. Nyt ilmestyvä Levi LaVallee, jonka tulet kuuntelemaan ihan hetken päästä. Huomenna tulee Kelkkalehden 5. numeron podcasti, eli käymme sisällön siinä läpi. Ja jouluaattona tulee jouluspesiaali. Muistakaa, jouluspesiaali, jouluaattona. Ja se julkaistaan jouluaattona kello 12. Niin siinä teillä on sitten kinkunsulatteluohjeessa mukavaa kuunneltavaa. Ja meillä on siellä spesiaali vieras ja käymme vähän nuoruusmuistoja kelkkailusta jouluna. Ja sehän nyt tietenkin lipsahti sitten aika pitkäksi se podcast. On nimittäin 2 tunnin jouluspesiaali luvassa. Ja siellä meillä on vieraana taas Kimmo Hemmo Kaltiokumpu. Ja me juteltiin pitkästi kelkkailusta ja kelkkailun joulumuistoista. Niin pistäkähän sekin kuunteluun. Ja se tulee tosiaan jouluaattona 24.12. kello 12. Mutta pidemmittä puhetta Levi LaVallee.
So first of all, welcome to our podcast, Levi, and I apologize for my bad English because I didn't pay attention on the English classes or on any classes on the school. I just was thinking about snowmobiles all the time, and I learned English from watching Knight Rider and Bold and the Beautiful. And the only things I learned is like, I'm on my way, buddy, and oh, rich.
Well, I apologize for my English. It's my native language here, and I'm not very good at that either.
Okay.
I think I was thinking about snowmobiles too much as well.
Did you grow up with snowmobiles as a kid?
Yeah, so I grew up riding snowmobiles. My parents actually got into snowmobiling when I was 7 years old. And then the next year, when I turned 8, my dad found a used Indy 400 for me.
Okay.
And I could just barely touch the running boards. And I started riding and following my dad through the trails. And, you know, Dad would always go pretty good down the trail. So it was always like a race to keep up with him. And then eventually I got faster and faster, which led to our first race. And then that just opened up a big can of worms for us.
Was the first race for you the snowcross, or did some cross?
The first one was a cross-country race.
Okay.
So it was out on a lake, and they essentially set up cones out there. And there was some snow, so it got a little bit rough, but eventually you would burn down to the ice. And in the corners, a lot of times it would be ice, and then you'd kind of have bumps coming out of it. But it was more or less cross-country, and we did that for probably 3 years. 3 years, I think it was, and then I started doing snowcross after that.
That's kind of racing that we don't have over here because, you know, we have only basic snowcross and really, really hardcore bump riding, cross-country racing. And I met Ben Langas from Articat, and he showed me the videos from their races, and been following some Articat guys from the cross-country races. And that's kind of fun because they have, like, you know, the races are based on lakes and stuff like that, and they have studs on the tracks and spikes. And when you have snowmobiles, and they have really open ideas how to make the engines, they can do whatever for the engines. Like,
right.
So that's kind of fun, and I'm really interested in the engineering stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Like I enjoyed racing on the ice because, like, when you start putting studs and big carbides, they would have. We'd have 10-inch racing carbides that were, I mean, you could literally cut a piece of paper with it. They were so sharp. But you're, like, glued to the ice. I mean, it was incredible how how much traction you'd have. And it was really fun to like just feel the sled like that locked in. And, and then you start messing with pulling studs out if you want a little bit more, if you kind of want to drift around the turn, kind of that style. I always enjoyed that. I didn't like my sled being really locked in. One, I was a little bit smaller, so I could get around the turn easier if I could kind of pitch the back end and let it pivot around the turn. So that's what I always enjoyed. I always had a little bit less studs than some of the other guys, but in general, it was a lot of fun. I think cross-country racing helped me a tremendous amount when I started racing snowcross, because you learn how to turn both left, right, and you just learn a lot more about cornering, unhooking your foot. A lot of people in the States right now grow up just racing snowcross, and there's a lot of skills that they're lacking because the practice tracks, a lot of times it's just an oval, so you're always turning left, and a lot of them don't know how to turn right and how to roll their hand or whatever to get around a turn on going right. And I kind of chuckle because I'm like, wow, you all need to go race some cross country or something just to learn the skills.
Yeah, and you don't learn about the riding just watching riding. You have to do stuff. Just even though you're like, one of my friends, she's a girl and she used to race snowcross, and she was like, give me some advice, mate. I haven't raced it ever. But I was like, if you don't have a chance to go to the actual snowcross tracks, just go out and go into your front yard and do like braking, turns and bump your sled into the bank.
Yeah.
Just to know what happens when you are braking on an icy track and it stops immediately.
Right.
Learn how to balance that, and then go into the swamp and make a loop of 8.
Yep.
And go that. Just right that 8.
Yep, exactly. It's very similar to like you do with motocross. When you said that figure 8, that's like a motocross technique, practice is just the figure 8, because you're just going and it's rut practice and stuff. But the snowmobile thing, that's what's funny is a lot of times, we get caught up with, in the States, there's some really nice practice facilities, and you just get caught up in just going there and pounding laps. And I always say, like, practice with purpose, like work on those techniques, work on braking. Like you said, just try to figure out, how can I stop better? Like set up a drill so it's like, how can I, make my stopping distance shorter, or kind of learn how to anti-brake, we'll say, because, you lock it up and just skid, it takes a lot longer to slow down. So it's trying to figure out those different things to help you become a better rider. And like I said, I mean, cross-country racing, you're practicing essentially doing all of that at speed, which I think is a great thing to practice for snowcross.
Yeah, and one thing is that if you're driving in different kind of conditions, like some guys, as you mentioned, they go to this certain facilities and they just go around on the same track. They know how to drive on that track.
Right.
But if you go in conditions that you don't know what's ahead, you have to be focused all the time, and you have to practice your brain, not just your muscles or driving skills, just your brain and the sense that gives you the the idea what to do in a nanosecond.
Yeah, and it's it's funny you say that, because they've been releasing a lot of the old snowcross videos recently, where it kind of was the start of my career. 2003 was my first pro year, and they're starting to release those videos, and I watch them and I look at how ridiculous my line choice was in my first laps. Like, I mean, there's one video where I rip the whole shot and I go right to the outside line. 3 guys go on the inside of me, push me out, and I'm like, why on earth did I do that? I didn't protect the inside, and it, as time goes on, you get more race savvy, you start learning these different things, and watching those videos, it really shows me, like, we have younger riders on our race team right now, and I think about, like, they're in that same time frame of when I first was in the pro class, and I look at from that 2003, 2004 time frame to where I was at 2008, 9, 10, those years, and how, I knew, don't leave the inside open on the first lap, protect yourself, and those different things. So it comes with a lot of, a lot of racing, a lot of experience. You just start learning those things. But I just say to younger riders is it's the fundamentals, working on braking, working on cornering, working on leaning, those type things, and you're jumping. And one of the ones that I always tell our riders, as I said, Tucker Hibbert was the best out there because he knew how to do all the skills. He had the biggest toolbox of anyone. Like if he needed to roll the sled, he could roll it around the turn. I saw Tucker at one race at a ski hill. He jumped off and was side hilling the thing like a mountain sled in the middle of the race. And you just look at it, and he just could do all of it, and he could do it all well. And that's what I was trying to explain to our guys is, he had the tool for every job out on the track. So it's like figuring out how to practice those and learn those skills so they become second nature.
Ja on muuten mielenkiintoisia nämä Levin tarinoinnit kelkkailusta. On nimittäin näkemystä ja kokemusta suuntaan ja toiseen. Mutta lyhyt tämmöinen kaupallinen tiedote tähän väliin. Muistathan, että kelkkalehti MK5 2023 on nyt myynnissä. Löydät lehen lehtiluukun digipalvelusta tai sitten ihan kioskeilta lehtipisteen myymälöistä. Ja voit katsoa lähimmän myyntipisteen menemällä lehti.fi ja etsi sieltä MK-lehti ja pistä oma postinumero, niin löydät kätevästi lähimmän kioskin. Ja muistathan, että kelkkalehti on erinomainen joululahja. Meillä on nyt joululahjatarjous ja voit käydä sieltä samalla tulostamassa tai tallentamassa lahjakortin, jonka voit antaa kaverille, läheiselle tai perilliselle joululahjojen yhteydessä. Mutta palataanpa takaisin tuonne podcastiin.
Yeah, Tucker had something that I couldn't explain ever. I remember exactly one race I was watching from TV, and he actually tipped the sled, and he was first, and he tipped the sled, and he was like fourth or fifth, and he was going a couple of rounds as a fifth, and then he decided that now I just need to go, and he went on the pump straight. Everybody was like doubling, and he went flat out from the outer corner, just on the top of the bank over there. Where did he came up with the ideas? And then he was a first.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I was very blessed to come up racing with Tucker. I was able to race against Tucker and Blair Morgan, which two of the best snowcross guys out there. The one that I didn't get to race against, I just got to watch, was Tony Heikkinen, which, in my eyes, Blair, Tucker, and Tony were the top three snowcross guys in history. And Tony, I got to watch him growing up, but never really got to race him. But Blair and Tucker, I got to race Blair kind of as he was near the end of his race career, and then Tucker kind of raced him all the way through. I raced him in semi-pro in the early years and all through the pros. So it was neat to see that, and it motivated me a lot, because you're looking at the best guys to ever do it, and you're going, how are they doing that? How do I get closer to that? So there was a lot of things that I learned from them, not directly giving it out, but just from watching and analyzing what they do.
You were also involved highly on or your career was on the point that when the sleds were evolving from which we call from the foot first snowmobiles, the old fashioned, and then you went to the Pro X, and then came to IQR. And so how much that changed your racing and the racing altogether, because there's a huge difference.
Yeah, it was a big change. It's funny looking at those old races and looking at the Pro X and some of those, the Edge chassis, and we do vintage races now, and I'm riding that. I'm riding a 2000 440 XC, and I'm riding this thing, and I'm going, we used to triple and do these huge doubles on this thing, and I'm scared to go around on a flat track on it. So it's pretty incredible to think about what the guys were doing, how we were jumping them, pounding through doubles, and looking at the Blair Morgans and Tuckers and the different Tony Heikkinens and stuff that were jumping these things, and you're just it's amazing to even think about that, because we do that race, the Tri-5, a charity race at the end of the year, and I was riding a 96 XCR, and I remember I'm going through the holes, and the front bumper is literally scooping snow through the holes, and I'm Tony Heikkinen used to double through this stuff, right? And you go, gosh, it's pretty incredible to think about how they progress the sport with, Tony doing the big air and the jumps, and Blair Morgan coming in with the kind of stand-up riding it like a motocross bike, and then Tucker just perfecting it and doing that. So it was really neat to be able to kind of see those three guys throughout my career and learn from them and kind of accelerate my riding in my career.
Yeah, my spine hurts just by watching all the old videos because they are just hitting the bumps really roughly.
It's the truth. Those old sleds, the 90s sleds, I always get on them and I'm like, I'm a pretty small guy and I get on them like, this thing fits me pretty well.
Yeah.
And you put like a 6 foot tall guy on and they're all hunched over and I'm like, oh my goodness, my back hurts. And I'm half the size of them. I'm like, I can't imagine being all hunched over like that.
Yeah, when they switch into this more, up riding position.
Rider forward.
Yeah, and I think that the racers had, at least in Finland, they had less back injuries, but they started, showing the ACLs.
And knees and ankles.
Knees and bones,
yeah.
Because they are standing up and they adjust the suspension really, really tough. And when they were landing in the flat grounds and even into the, against the bumps and poof,
yeah,
they went to fit.
Yeah, knees are always ones you got to protect. I tore up my knee. I tore up both my knees actually early years. In one of them was on an edge. I tore up the right knee on that, and then I tore my ACL and whatnot on the first year of the IQR. Yeah. I did that, and then it was knee brace was mandatory from that point on. So I don't get on a snowmobile now without my knee braces on. So.
Have you had any other injuries besides those knees?
Yeah, I did. I did both my knees. I tore my ACL, broke my leg, broke my tibia. I have a rod in that one. Broke my ankle, broke my heel and my foot in one thing. Separated both my shoulders, dislocated my wrist, broke all my ribs, collapsed both lungs, fractured 3 vertebrae. There's been a lot of different ones over the years, but it was really interesting because at first you're injured and when you're young, you're just I got to get back. I got to, what do I do to get back? And looking back on that, reflecting on it, it was the injuries a lot of times were blessings for me because what would happen with me is I would start building confidence, especially once I started doing freestyle and jumps and all this other stuff. Is I would start building confidence and I would start thinking I could do anything. I was like, I'm gonna do a double backflip, and the next year I'm like, I could break the world record jumping. I'm like, never done it, but I think I could figure it out. And I would start going down these roads and I'm trying these crazy things, and then I would get hurt. And then it would kind of take me down a level, and then I would get hurt again. And for 16 years, I had 4 years of health and then 4 years of injuries. And I did that two patterns of it. So it was 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. And I would start, in the 4 years of injuries, it would just kind of knock me down. And finally it was I would have to go, okay, why do I keep getting hurt? What am I doing? And it would just give me time. The injuries would give me time to kind of assess what was going on and then come up with a little bit better plan so I wouldn't get hurt. And then I would have 4 years of health, and we would start doing some neat things. And then I would, kind of get ahead of myself and get knocked back down. So it was a kind of a, interesting thing, but the injuries really helped me slow down and look at what was going on and reflect on things and then kind of have a better path moving forward.
So what's talking about freestyle and first of all, the double backflip, I remember watching that live from X Games because that was high.
It was really high.
How high did it went actually?
So there was no official thing, but we were talking with the folks from ESPN and they had, I can't remember what it was. They had one of those sky cams, one of those huge, they had a guy up in a way up high in this boom chair thing, and they said it was 60 feet high, and he said you were over the top of that. So they figured I was over 60 feet up, and I went almost to flat. So it was a pretty big impact. And the crazy thing to me is I still have that double flip sled, and we pulled it off of. I have a kind of a rack of all my trophy sleds, and I brought it to Heydays for Polaris. They wanted it at their booth this year. So I pulled it down, and I was looking at it, and it's the first time that I realized that the left side of the tunnel is actually a little bit kinked from, I think it's literally from me butt dropping from because I kind of landed slightly to the left. And if you look at the tunnel now, it's got a little wave in it. And I'm like, because it was a brand new sled, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I think that was literally from me like butt dropping the seat on that side, because it kind of was dented in, and I'm like, holy cow. But it was the first time I noticed it, but that sled, like, to think about, it falling out of the sky, and it didn't hats off to the quality of it, because man, it took a pretty healthy impact.
Did you have any chances to practice it? Did you do it in the foam pit or the airbags?
Yeah, so I practiced it in the foam pit. I mean, goodness, it was for over a month. I was practicing it. So the original reason why I built the foam pit was solely for that double flip. Like we won freestyle and speed and style in 2008, and I already had plans. As soon as we won that, like, it kind of motivated me, going, hey, like, we can do big things here. I'm doing a double backflip, and I was fortunate enough to watch Travis Pastrana do the double backflip at X Games in 2006, and I was like, yep, I'm doing double flip next year. So we built the foam pit at my shop, and I practiced for pretty much the second half of December through January solely on double flip. And in fact, I didn't even have any freestyle practice going out to X Games. It was only the double flip. So I went out there, and I was like trying to learn my tricks again for freestyle. And then we went and did the double flip in the foam pit. The idea was I was going to rotate one flip and then throw the second one away and just see how far the sled would rotate, and then I would land in the foam. And we did that, and we just kept propping the ramp up steeper and steeper and steeper until the sled started coming around on the second flip on its own. And then it was like, okay, I guess if it can flip it, if it'll rotate the second one on its own, hopefully it does it with me on it, right? So then I started staying on for it, and we tried it once at my shop, and I under-rotated it because I was so nervous about going too far, because I was going so high. I'm like, if I go too far, I think I'm going to get hurt. So I didn't want to overshoot it, and I went and hit it the first time, and I hit it a little bit short. I was about 5 feet short, and I under-rotated and kind of landed on the nose, and then the sled toppled over on me. And there's a video of it, and it was super funny because there was like maybe 6, 7 people there, and it was dead silent because they're all like, wow, we just watched this guy die. And I jump up, and I'm like, I just gotta hit it faster. And I'm like, I'm okay, I just gotta hit it faster. And they're all like looking at me like, for real, and all that I had was a bloody nose. I had a little bloody nose, but my sled was like grenaded because it just landed right on its nose, and it just crumpled it up, and then it rolled down the hill. So we, if the sled would have made it, I probably would have tried it again right there. But the sled was so crumpled up. We hauled it out to Aspen. They rebuilt the sled, and then we went and did it at X Games. Then that would have been 6 days later, because we tried it on Saturday and then got out to X Games, and best trick was on Friday night, I remember. So yeah, it was a scary one though. But that was, the double flip was the first time in my life that I ever like really felt like I was rolling the dice, where I was like, man, this is either gonna go really well or it's gonna go really bad. And I had accepted at that point where I was like, you know what, I'm committed. I'm doing this, and that was, I'm glad it went as well as it did, because it could have been a really bad one.
Yeah, and nowadays you see that like people are practicing for the with the dirt bikes, and they have the huge airbags, and I feel that it makes the sport evolve quite a bit faster, especially on the dirt bikes. I think that they're doing triple backflips already.
Yeah.
Bikes and everything. So
it's unreal. It's unreal. The ramps. Travis Pastrana. He's been a big influence on progressing that sport with the airbags, and he's creating these massive ramps now. You essentially need to do triple flips and things like that. You just got to have more air time. So they're building it up even bigger, and the bigger the ramp is, the higher you go, the harder the landing is. So they start integrating these airbags into it, which is phenomenal, because we're seeing like legitimately video game tricks happening, which is like out of this world. Like I just remember when I was younger, we used to have the dirt bike video games and all these different things, and you're like, oh, double backflip, no hander, and we're like, yeah, that'll never happen, and you're like, no, actually that is happening, right? So it's crazy to think about triple backflips and things like that, but that's where somebody people have asked me before with distance jumping. They're like, you think anyone will ever beat your record, jump over 400 feet? And I said, without a doubt. It's just, you're just like momentarily holding that spot until somebody goes, hey, I think I want to go bigger, and I think that's what's neat about what Travis has done with kind of developing these ramps and the airbags and kind of progressing that sport. Is it's allowing people to think even more outside the box and going, hey, wouldn't it be neat to be able to do this? And I think that's a pretty neat thing, because that's what the better part of my career was, trying to figure out, like, what else can we do on a snowmobile?
But you guys, you have to practice most of the tricks in the hard landings.
Yeah.
And that's what it just blows my mind. It's like doing backflips, never done it before, and start doing backflips in the hard landings.
Yeah.
And that was the case for the most of the guys on your.
Yeah, it was different for sure. I mean, going out there, and the early guys, the Jay Quinlans, and I mean Jim Rippey doing it. He was a snowboarder, and he's just like, I think I'm gonna do a backflip on a snowmobile, and he's on a. At that time, it was like so foreign too, because he was riding a mountain sled, and in the early years, it was everyone had 121s, short track sleds, and they were flipping those, and but he's like, yep, just gonna do it, and you look back on that, and he just did it on the side of a mountain, he's like, we're gonna flip today, and he shoveled up a ramp, and you're like, I think that'll work, and knowing what we know now, it's like it's incredible that those guys like were able to figure that out. And I mean, even when we did the double flip, I had a terrible ramp. I was just, my whole goal was just, I need more height. So I put a kink in the middle of the ramp. I like literally hinged my ramp and just propped the top up. So it was like running into a wall, and it unloaded the suspension, and it was just such a terrible design. But, I think it's neat when somebody has a vision of what could be, and they're motivated to do it, and they'll do whatever it takes. I think it's neat to see people when they're like that driven to achieve things.
But the thing is that pros like you make it look so easy, and people don't necessarily understand how dangerous it actually is, because I have I can tell you one thing, that we had like our own ramp. Mm-hmm. We built it with my friends, and we make this landing on my farm. And my friend, he used to jump from that, and he was really determined to do a backflip with snowmobile. He tried it backcountry a couple of times, didn't land it, was close, but didn't land it, and he wanted to be the first in Finland. Mm. And we built the ramp, and we built the landing, and he did it on the hard landing without practice, and almost died.
Oh.
So he had like really bad brain injury on that, and he was dead for a while.
Oh goodness!
I wasn't there. I was on a trip with customers and snowmobiles, and I just heard meanwhile that he almost died, and there's helicopters.
Oh, that's terrible.
And that's I always tell to the young guys that I was like, I want to do a freestyle and go somewhere, go to the Budin's place. He has a foam pit.
Right.
Practice there, and he can tell you what to do. He can teach you, but don't try it on your own. And,
Right.
And I'm a bit scared of what you think about the new wave guys like Andreas Bergmark and guys like that. They are again a different kind of professional that make that kind of stuff look really easy.
Mm-hmm.
And people think that there is no risk. We are doing it on backcountry. There's no risks.
Right.
But I know for sure that there is big risk even on that.
Huge risk. The biggest thing that jumps out to me is you're in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, it's like to come and get you, at best they come with a heli if they can to get you out of there if you do get injured bad. I had actually my first time flipping a snowmobile was in Alaska, and it was in backcountry, and we had this big wind lip, and there was it was myself and another gentleman from I can't recall if he was from Sweden or where he was from, but he the two of us were going to do our first backflip. So I go and I went first, I flipped, and it worked, and I landed super hard, and I'm like, one and done. I got it done, check the box, let's move on, right? And then that gentleman went and he landed a little crooked, and he hurt his back, broke his back, and they had to airlift him off the hill. We sat there and waited for the heli to come, and the heli kind of did that landing on the side of the mountain where it's just hovering, and they loaded him and hauled him out of there. And I'm just like, my goodness, like when you get hurt back there, the time to get you out of there is so long. And if you've got something internal bleeding or you've got something like that, it's you don't have time to mess around. So it definitely can get a little bit more risky when you are that far away from being able to get help and being able to get to the hospital. So it is something I think about when I ride in the mountains. It's really fun to go out there and you start seeing jumps and you're like, this is awesome. But in the same time, you have to like kind of look at it and go like, now, if something goes wrong, am I going to be able to ride out with a broken leg or a broken arm one-handed? Am I going to be able to get out? And if not, what is the other options? And that's something that you got to think a little bit more about when you're in the backcountry.
Yeah, and I kind of hope that these, regular chaps that are watching people do hardcore stuff on the backcountry keeps that more in mind, because these professional guys like Barry Mark and all those guys, they think about the risks, and they have to think about risks. They are creating content that they know, and they have people doing some kind of risk management for them. But the regular guys that are watching, maybe I can do that, and they're just in the middle of nowhere without no cell reception and everything. So
right,
that's a big risk game. But moving to another thing, the one thing that stands out for me from your career is the city rides on the city. And for me as a content creator, one thing that blows my mind is the production value. I'm watching that and I see, how did they film that? How did they do that? I know how much work that takes. Mm-hmm. So how was that production? How big of a deal? How did you manage to pull out that in the end?
I was very fortunate to be able to do the urban snowmobiling in St. Paul in the Port City project in Duluth. And Red Bull was instrumental in making those things happen. But I remember going to them with that idea because in that time frame, Ken Block was doing the Gymkhana videos where he was ripping around in the rally car, and I just said, I'm like, we could do that same thing, but I could be jumping off buildings, and I could amplify that a little bit more. So I went in with the idea, and then they came back and said, hey, what do you think about St. Paul? Red Bull had a really good relationship with St. Paul at that time. They were doing crashed ice there, the ice skating hockey like race that they would do, and they would do the finale right in front of the cathedral in St. Paul. And so it went over super well. So they had a good relationship with St. Paul, and they said, hey, could we do it there? And I said, that'd be amazing, right? It's my home state, and it's the capital of it, right? So we went down there, and you do kind of make a wish list. You drive around. I remember driving around like, yeah, I could probably jump up those and I could jump off that. And, so you make this big list. Then you go through and you find all the property owners and you got to talk to them and say, hey, can we jump off your building? And they're like, no. So you kind of figure that out. And so you got to deal with the city. You got to deal with the police department. You got to deal with the landowners. There was, it was a pretty elaborate program to get something like that accomplished. And then once you get that, narrowed down to, okay, these people said absolutely not, but these people said we could, then you go and survey it. So we went and measured everything. We measured heights, distances, lengths, all these different things. And we made replicas of all the features at my shop. And then I could practice it. So when, prior to going and filming it, I had already done the backflip up onto the platform. We already had a replica of that. We had step downs. We had all the jumps. And I would just every day go out there and, run around this course. There's 15 or something different features, and I'd turn it into a big lap where it's like, all right, here's a 200-foot jump, and then goes to a backflip, step up, and then I turn around and jump off of it, and then I had little car doubles where we were jumping over the cars. I had a little rhythm section of those, and, I would do that stuff. So when I got there to film, it was, I already knew what I was doing, and even with that, the filming still took us 6 days to shoot the whole thing. So, and we would literally film from sun up till sundown. It was like our call time was 7 a.m. and we would go until it was dark. And on top of that, I was doing, it was the week before X Games that we shot it all. So we shot this the third week in January, and the fourth week is X Games. So I was shooting that stuff sun up till sundown. Then I would drive an hour to ERX, to the north side of this city, the Minneapolis area in Minnesota, and they had this practice facility there. And we had a freestyle landing there, and I would flip on, the diesel generator lights so I could see what I was doing, and I would jump freestyle for an hour or so, and then drive an hour back south down to where we were staying, and then get up and do it again the next day. So it was a pretty hectic week, but in general, the shoot went flawless. The only issue we had of all of the jumps and all the features was literally the last thing where I drive into the van at the end of the video. We backed that box van up and we built this snow ramp to kind of like loading ramp to get me in. It was all fresh snow. So I drive in the first time, they close the doors and I can hear them. And they go, I had an earpiece in, and they go, great, look good. Okay, let's do it again. I'm like, okay. Second time goes, and second one, you kind of know what to expect, so you give it a little more gas and you're trying to make it a little bit quicker. So I come in, there's a slight turn, and then I'm going up my snow ramp, and when we pulled the sled out after the first time, the back of my skis, when it came out of the van, they tipped down, and it cut the top of my ramp off. So there was all of a sudden, there was probably a 6-inch rise of like no snow, no ramp up to the box, and the edge of the van was like square, right? And I'm looking at that, and it's kind of like when you're loading your sled on a snowmobile trailer and you're like, I hope the carbide doesn't catch and spin me. Of course, that's exactly what it did. So I come around the corner and I look, and I'm like, well, I'll just try to pop a little wheelie to lift the front over it and do that. So I give it a little wheelie and I lean back, and my right ski catches, and the sled just automatically does a 45. I run right into the wall of the box van. I flip over the handlebars, and my thigh is pinning the throttle wide open, and I'm up against the wall, just stuck there. So I'm laying over the hood, and it's like, what? And I'm roosted snow, and we had all these people, like, because nobody knew what we were doing. And, all the moments before I did the jump over from the parking ramp to the Science Museum kind of yard, and I did a big Superman over it. And so all of a sudden I've got a group of people watching, and then the next thing I do is I run into the wall, and they're looking at it like, I kept thinking, I'm like, gosh, they're like going, what just happened? Who is this guy? So, but anyway, that was the one hiccup we had, and for that being the worst thing, I'd say it was a pretty good shoot.
I wonder why is every time something bad happens, it's usually when guy who's filming or taking photos, okay, it's pretty good, but let's take one more time.
Yeah. One more always gets you. So I always say another. Let's do another time, is what I say.
I hurt my knee while we were taking photos and filming in Sweden, and I was jumping from this wind lip, and I was like, okay, that's enough. And photographer, let's take one more. I'm going to focus a little bit different. But like, the landing is a bit rough. There's a huge hole on it.
Yeah.
But if I turn the sled while I'm in air just a little bit, I may be able to do that. Like, I shouldn't do this. I'm gonna do it. And when I hit the kicker over there, I don't know what happened, and I tore my knee, the ACL and everything. So
one more and it gets you. I separated my shoulder. It was one more. We were doing nose wheelies on dirt bikes down this thing, and this guy was videoing, and he goes, "Oh, one more time." I'm like, "Okay." So you go a little bit bigger, and I went over the bars, and the sled or the bike landed right on my shoulder and separated my shoulder. So ever since then, I was I think 18 at the time. And from that point on, I have never done one more. If somebody says, one more time, I go, another time, another.
Yeah.
I said, one more is when you get hurt.
Yeah. So after all these years and all these eventful, action-packed things and everything, do you still get excited from snowmobiles every day?
Oh, I do. What's been really fun with my snowmobiling journey is like starting off, you riding with my family, and getting into racing and going, we went to the moon as far as these different things within snowmobiling and starting the race team and everything. And now it's like it's come full circle where I'm back to just riding again, where just for joy, because there's so much competition, so much pushing myself, so much focus on all that. And now I go out and I'm like, I have sleds, and it's like, sweet, I'm just going to go ride today to ride. Yeah. And I really, really enjoy that. And it's been a lot of fun getting out and kind of riding the things that I used to ride growing up, the different areas, the trails, the ditches, find these jumps. And when I was, 13, 14, your skill level was so low, you don't even recognize all these different opportunities of jumps and cool things. And now I'm like going back to these places, and I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that sweet jump. I could jump from here to there, and I could do this and that. So I really enjoy going out riding where, just around where I grew up. And now it's fun because we have, a 9-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son, and we go, my wife and I will take them out riding to different things around town, which reminds me of how my parents took me out when I was a kid. So it's really gone full circle, and the sport of snowmobiling in general, I really appreciate it a lot more, looking at all that it's brought to my life.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that some people who are involved with snowmobiling on a high level, like races or doing other stuff, they lose the spark for the sport in the end. So it's because it takes quite a lot from them, and they don't want to. Like, I know racers that just do it for racing, and they don't go riding a sleds at all on their spare time, and in the end of the career, they don't want to do.
Right.
They won't be involved in the sport anymore. So.
Yeah, in racing is tough because you dedicate so much time, so much energy just to. Like when I was racing, as I was saying earlier, I'm racing against two of the best to ever do it, and you're just beating your head off the wall, going, "How can I get a little faster in the corners? How can I get through? Can I get a little better preload?" And you just put so much mental, physical energy, emotional energy into it, and sometimes when they're done, they're just like, "I'm done," and it's maybe not. It's not directed towards snowmobile. It's just directed towards the anguish you had of trying to progress as a racer. And for me, I think freestyle, it really opened my eyes up. When I started doing freestyle, it balanced me out where, you dwell on that, how do I get faster, that question, and you're kind of just analyzing it so much. When I started doing freestyle, it was like I was excited because I was like, I'm going to go jump freestyle and I'm going to try to learn tricks. And when I would do that for a little bit, and then I would like, oh, sweet, now I'm going to go back and race snowcross, and going back and forth, it made both of them a lot more fun for me because I was like excited to go back and forth, but because I was splitting my focus between the two of them, so they both were like so exciting every time I went back. And and after I got done with that, I feel like it left me with a bunch of skill on my snowmobile. So then when I went back to just like ditch banging and trail riding and mountain riding, I was like, it made that even more fun because I had all this bag of skill to make that fun. So I really wish the racers and stuff that kind of get out of it. I hope that I understand taking a little breather from it, but I hope that they go back and try it again or just riding, because the sport itself is so enjoyable on so many levels that it's I would say a shame to cut it out of your life completely.
But then again, I feel that at least in Finland, the snowmobilers are, if I could compare it to some other sport, is people with Harley Davidsons, because they are really passionate, they are excited, they are passionate, they're dedicated to their brand and their hobby with the bikes. And snowmobilers, they are, even though we have like some would say like difficult kind of economics going on, and we have like had issues with the snow in the southern parts, but still people are they are staying with the sport because they're so passionate. Like I don't see anything like that with the motorbikes or dirt bikes or ATVs or even boats or anything like that. People just, well, that's just a hobby. I just leave that. But with the snowmobiles, if you started then with this hobby, there's really, really few people that they give up in any circumstances. They even want to sell their car to keep their sled.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, snowmobilers for the most part are some of the most passionate people out there, and it's really energizing to come to events. You go to an event, and it'll be, we have a big event in the States, Heydays, in the first weekend in September, and it is so much fun because people are they're so excited. You can just see it when they walk up to talk to you. Yeah. They're just like you can see a grin on their face. They're just ready to erupt with like excitement, and it's so energizing for me. So I'm like, oh, because they're coming to talk sleds with you, and I'm matching their excitement too. So it really is fun to talk to snowmobilers, and even here I am in Finland, talking to guys, and you can feel that passion, and the community is just such a good group of people. They're excited to go riding, but in the same breath, if you need any help with anything, they're there to help you. It's just a good group of people, snowmobilers, and it's just an honor to be a part of such a cool community and such a cool sport.
And snowmobilers around the world, they are same kind of people. I've been talking with like people like Chris Durant, and we were supposed to be on phone for like half an hour, and we stayed talking just this and that for 3 hours or 4 hours. And I've been riding with Chris Brown in Whistler, and everybody is the same. It's just snowboard. Even though for me, for guys I'm a redneck from really remote place in Finland, and I can be with this world stars on over there in the States, and everybody's just passionate about the sports, and they are like Chris Brown said, I'm not just a star, I'm just a snowmobiler, and I just enjoy the sport, and I'm just happy to be on a position where I am with the snowboard, and that kind of gives us the comfort for the that we are just snowmobilers and enjoy the sport.
For sure, it is. It's really neat to talk to the folks like Chris Brandt and the guys that are so huge in the sport, but they're so just the normal guy. And I think snowmobiling is the community is that. It's just a bunch of good folks having fun, enjoying something they love.
So how have you what you think about our small event over here in Finland?
This has been phenomenal. I've really enjoyed coming over for this event. All the folks here in Finland have been great. This whole trip's been really good. We've been able to play tourist a little bit, be able to come to this event, and to be honest, the thing that's been really interesting to me is how many people are here, and it's not a small area, but it is like packed.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like we're at a rock concert. It's like shoulder to shoulder walking through it all, and it is so cool to see. And everyone that I've talked to has just been, they've just been so excited and so jacked for this season to come. So it definitely is motivating, and we're all sitting here, kind of just praying and wishing that snow's going to come soon because we're ready to ride.
Yeah, I'm in a fortunate situation. When I go back home, I'll start riding because we have a really good base layer, and I'm going to start grooming some trails, and then we are able to go.
Oh, perfect.
Do you guys have a chance to go to see the Santa?
We were able to go see Santa. We went to the Santa Claus Village on Friday, and we were able to meet the man himself.
Okay.
Got the pictures, got video, the whole deal. So that was a pretty cool experience, and we are going to the Glass Top Igloo on tomorrow, and we're going to stay there, and hopefully the sky is clear and we can see the northern lights and whatnot. So
let's hope, because usually this time of the year the skies are gray because we are getting some low pressure areas from the northern sea. But let's see.
Well, hopefully so. But so far I've been. This is my first time in Finland, and I've been very impressed. It's been a lot of fun, great people, great area, and I really hope that I can come back to come ride. I'd like to come in the winter so I could ride. I'd like to ride in Finland and make my way over to Sweden and ride over there and just kind of hit it all, because it's the only time I've been over this way is years ago. I went to Sweden for Clash of Nations. And that, it was kind of a in and out type trip.
Yeah.
And now I realized, like, holy cow, like, if we're going to these places, schedule a couple extra days just to check it out. So that's what we're doing with this one is we schedule a couple extra days to see. We're going to check out the things around here, and then we'll head back to Helsinki, and we got a little time there to kind of play Dora the Explorer and check that out too.
So maybe next time when you come up here, we go to the eastern parts of Lapland and go for a little bit adventure riding.
I would love to.
That's a really fun part of snowmobiling, because it's just not trail riding, because it's you go on smooth trails, and then there comes really bumpy sections, and okay, now we're doing this, and then you go really fast section, and then you go and realize that, there's no trails, this untouched snow, you go for 100 kilometers on that, and then you start with, okay, now I have to think about will I be able to make it to the next gas station? Everything like that. So there's a huge sense of adventure on that.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that would be super fun. So that's the goal, is to try to make it back, and I would love to go on an adventure type ride like that. I think that would be a ton of fun.
Oh, maybe we'll make that happen. And we've been going on for 50 minutes, so it's time to thank you for this. It's been really fun, and thank you for the time, and hope you have a nice time today here in Exhibition. It's going to be a little bit slower today, but today is going to be more younger kids, which is my favorite part. Part of the weekend is like the young kids. They recognize me from some YouTube videos and from a magazine, and they know everything about the sleigh. So they come to challenge me to see if they know something that I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's super fun, and like I said, I've had an amazing time over right now, and thank you very much for having me on the podcast. And it's going to be fun just talking with some of the younger kids right now and talking snowmobiles with it. That's what we're all here for, is snowmobiling, and it's quite a incredible sport we have, and great group of people.
Yes. So thank you.
Tämä on Kelkkalehti podcast.